So statement 5 is the statement that talks about the specifics of dependent origination in terms of the specific list of the 12 links of dependent origination given in many places in the Buddha's teachings. So in these 12 links, often it starts with ignorance, basic not seeing, this basic darkness. First, in this basic darkness, we don't see things as they are. And when we don't see things as they are, we don't just stop that. That's kind of the problem. When we don't see things as they are, then we begin to imagine things. Then what we begin to imagine, we take to be very real. So there is, you could say, a passive aspect to this not knowing. That is like the basic darkness, not seeing, kind of, you could say, a passive aspect. But then from that passive aspect of not seeing things as they are, we actively imagine them to be otherwise. That's the active part of that confusion. So this is like the first, often given, always given as the first. So if we look at Khenpo Kunpal's commentary, out of that ignorance, out of that not seeing, the darkness, then karmic formation is produced. Then so on and so forth. And so here in this statement, Gilbert wants to remind us that this basic non-seeing, this marikpa or avidya, vidya is knowledge, a is the opposite, the lack of. So avidya, or in Tibetan, rikpa. Rikpa has several different, slightly different meanings. In the Dzogchen context, when they talk about rikpa, they're talking about basically what in Mahamudra material would be talking about, like nature of mind. But there's a more basic meaning of rikpa, which is simply knowledge or to know. So marikpa, lack of knowledge, not knowing. So Khenpo Rinpoche wants to remind us that actually this not knowing is not just one out of 12 aspects of dependent arising, but that this basic not knowing is what fuels, what generates, what activates, what keeps it going, what keeps the 12 links continuously turning and turning and turning and turning. Next circle, next circle, next circle, next circle, next circle. It's all driven by this basic not knowing. Now, statement 2.6 points out another aspect of these 12 links of dependent arising. And so 2.6 basically says, if we look at the statement itself, furthermore, those 12 links are completed in a moment. And this statement arose because there are various opinions about, like in terms of these 12 things, are they all happening in one moment? Or are they happening over periods of time? And in fact, in the Abhidharma system, they have developed these ways of understanding the 12 links of dependent arising that says, oh, this takes 3 lifetimes to complete the 12 links of dependent arising, or 2 lifetimes. So ignorance, and then before ignorance, right? The factor before is old age and death. So they'll say ignorance and old age and death for example, they might say, belongs to last lifetime. And because of those two, old age and death, then leads to ignorance, and ignorance is last lifetime, then from there leads to karmic formations, and then now this lifetime. And then they keep going until they say, okay, all this is this lifetime, and then over here, so becoming is next lifetime. So they might say things like this, all these discussions. But here, Kyoba emphasizes, furthermore, these 12 links are completed in a moment. Meaning that, and here we don't need to be so literal about like literally one moment. Kyoba's point here is that all these 12 parts, they are constantly happening right now. So the bigger point here, I think, would be, in some ways, answering those questions. Like, so is rebirth, right? When we talk about rebirth, are we talking about rebirth as just how normally people understand that, and then based on that understanding, people either accept or reject this idea of rebirth, which is the most gross, the most obvious one, which is that, when I was born this life, 50 plus years ago, at this hospital and all that, before that I had another life, with another body, with another identity, another story, and then from there, I was born in this life, and then 50 plus years now, and then a few more years into the future, and then this life ends, and then next life. Right? Now this will be taking this into literal and limiting it to only there. In the Buddha's teachings, Buddha doesn't deny that this is going on. Buddha accepts, in his teachings is clear, at least the teachings that have come down to us, is quite clear. That this understanding, yes, of course. But the Buddha says, equally important is to recognize how rebirth is taking place from moment to moment. When the moment of previous mind dies, and the moment of this present mind arising, and this present mind arising, abiding, and then cannot hold on. It loses its ability to hold on, then its process of dying begins. And then this moment dissolves. And as this moment dissolves, it pushes the arising of the next moment. So from moment to moment, in the context of the 12 links of dependent origination, Kyopa Rinpoche is saying, in each of these moments, all these 12 links are going on the microcosmic level. On the macrocosmic level, yes, the birth and death that you and I talk about, you and I probably have anxieties about, but this macro birth and death and in between, moments of birth and death and in between are occurring from moment to moment to moment to moment. And because we're blind to that process, we're often too distracted to notice that process. So we don't ever think about it. And then when the macro level of last life, this life, and next life begins to show clearly, then we all panic, like, oh, I don't want this. I don't want this to happen. Sometimes I even think, when it happens for ourselves, maybe we have a little bit more acceptance. But then when it happens to someone else close to us, we find that very hard to handle. maybe a different kind of hard to handle than with our own mortality. Perhaps with our own mortality, I don't know, there's a little bit more control. But with someone else's close to us, almost close to us, like our shadow. Oh, especially with that, you feel like you are so involved and yet you are nodding. You have no idea what is going on. And so this sense of like anxiety and fear. But that is because, at least in part, we are not seeing the moment to moment, the microcosmic birth and deaths that are going on right now. So this 2-6, statement 6, is showing us that even now are these moments. So the commentary, statement 6, chapter 2, furthermore, these 12 links of dependent origination are generally completed slowest in 3 lifetimes and quickest in 2 lifetimes. Yeah, see, Khenpo Kunpal, coming from this scholastic background, tells us that. It's like, yes, that's normally how it's explained. Specifically, then, at the very quickest, they are sequentially completed and finished in a moment of completing an action. So he says, in every moment of an action being created, being completed, all 12 links, if you know how to look carefully, pay attention, you see all the 12 links of dependent arising at work. And so this is the dependent arising for confused existence. In the great teachings, great Drigong teachings to the assembly, Kyopa Rinpoche goes into other types of dependent arising. There's another text that has been translated, and recently I was reading that, also a lot of details of his unique way of explaining dependent arising. So there's much to kind of take to heart about his understanding of this dependent arising. But here, the commentary says, specifically at the very quickest, they are sequentially completed, these 12 links, and finish in a moment of completing an action. The deluded mind of the moment where hatred arises is ignorance, and the beating and so forth generated by that hatred is karmic formation, and so on. So in one action, so here the action of violence, the action of aggression, and the action of hatred, how in in an act of violence, all 12 links of dependent arising takes place. The master Vasubandhu said that in the time span of killing a sheep, the 12 links of dependent origination are completed. So this is a quotation found in old commentaries. Vasubandhu is one of the great masters that actually articulated and explained and laid out the Abhidharma system. And so here they are quoting an Abhidharma authority to show that actually in the Abhidharma, the 12 links of dependent arising is not just talking about the macrocosmic level of last life, this life, next life. It's also on the microcosmic level of within this life, within one set of actions. For example, when anger arises, and then you let that take over. In that whole sequence of events, you can see all 12 links of dependent arising of suffering taking place. And you don't have to wait for a few lifetimes to see how this works. Then, 2:8 actually elaborates further. But let's look at 2:7 first. So, statement 7 in chapter 2, it says, due to the different minds, the appearances are also different. So, meaning, what appears, which is outside the context of Dharma, we call it, oh, this life, this earth, this universe, whatever. So, but from the more precise, more clear perspective offered by the Dharma, we call this appearances. When we call all of these appearances, it reminds us, that what we call life, what we are really grasping at, or sometimes fearing, sometimes really liking, sometimes ambivalent, sometimes cannot let go, sometimes fed up with, all of this, the Buddha calls them appearances. Immediately, this word, appearances, is a very nice word. Appearances, immediately is reminding us already. They only appear to be the way they are. They only appear like that. Then you also should remember, it is how it appears to you. How it appears to me. And so that's why sometimes when we are so upset, then we get even more upset when people around us are not as upset as we are. We simply cannot understand. We say, how can you be so unthoughtful, so unfeeling? Or maybe we can say, can you not see how dangerous this situation is? How terrible this is all? Actually, can we not see that we have the reaction that we have to whatever is going on because these are appearances? And exactly, they appear the way they appear to the perceiver, to you, to me. My what I see, what I experience, what appears for me is the result of my own karmic baggage. So this is my set of appearances. Now to footnote, okay, we have to be very careful not to use this on other people. I think many dysfunctional Buddhist communities, very many dysfunctional Buddhist families can use this, to kind of reinforce the abuse and do what we might call blame the victim. I was just reading about, actually it was a podcast I was listening to, somebody who left some Buddhist group that they don't like. And yes, that Buddhist group has had a lot of criticisms from being quote unquote cult-like. That term cult-like is very imprecise, It's like, it's usually used for whatever you don't like, and then you say, oh, they have cult-like behavior. Funny thing is that when I listened to what she said, then I thought, well, this could as easily happen in any Buddhist community. Many of us are very defensive, when we hear that, we say, no, it cannot happen. It cannot happen. No, we were not like this, oh, she misunderstands. She doesn't understand, or, if it happens to be, a group that we kind of like, like, no, this is misunderstanding. Then if it is the group that we don't like, we're like, oh, yes, this is cult-like behavior. But there are things in the Dharma, again, like if we don't know how to use, we don't know how to apply, and they can be very abusive. So if you have a community, and things are not right, I mean, really not right, people are being taken advantage of. I'm not even talking about the blatant kind of abusive things. Even on less of a level, right? It can easily, when we apply this to others, when we kind of weaponize the Dharma without us even knowing, we say, well, it's just your own stuff, your own stuff, your own stuff. Yes, a lot of times it is our own stuff. But when someone comes to us with their suffering, we cannot just say, oh, it's your own stuff. We have to. That's why we also need to cultivate compassion, right? We cultivate not only wisdom, we also cultivate love and compassion. We cultivate not only ultimate bodhicitta, we also cultivate relative bodhicitta. And the two are indispensable. It's not like you cultivate relative to graduate relative and now you are at ultimate. No, it's not like that. Ultimate and relative bodhicitta are two sides of the same coin. And until we are Buddhas, we have to intentionally cultivate both. So I think this is an important point. Please remember this again and again. This quote from Gampopa is really important. If we don't know how to practice Dharma practice can lead to the lower realms. It's not that the Buddha taught anything to lead people to the lower realms. It's our lack of skill, lack of understanding, lack of clarity can pervert the Dharma. So back to appearances, right? So applying it to ourselves, basically appearances are what appears to us. So here, how is it that dissimilar appearances occur for the same object of the world and its inhabitants, such as a mountain or a continent, as large or small, pure or impure, and so forth? So some people really like, this place or that place. And some people really don't like this place or that place. I can definitely tell you places that I feel, immediately kind of a closeness to. And places that even though I've been many times, I'm always on the guard when I go there. But why is it the way they are? Because, so here continuing, due to the various dissimilar and different minds of sentient beings, with pure and impure karma, the appearances are also perceived as various, dissimilar, and different. So all the variety of differences. Some people like blue cheese. Some people think it's the most horrible thing. Some people like coffee. Some people really cannot stand coffee. So the appearances that lead to likes and dislikes are dissimilar based on the individual's karmic baggage. And so here Khenpo Kunpal says, it is, for example, like water, which is seen as nectar by the gods. So if you have a body of water, the gods, because of their karma, would perceive, and not just perceive, but they actually experience and benefit from this experience and are nourished by this experience, and they see it as nectar. So the gods eat nectar or elixir. For humans, we see it as water. And then we say, oh, this is river. Then we use it accordingly. For hungry ghosts, they see it as blood and pus. For hell beings, they see it as a river of fire. melting lava. For fish, they see it as their world. So is the fish's perception more accurate than your perception, my perception? Is my perception more accurate than the hell being's perception? Is the hell being's perception more accurate than the God realm's perception? No. Precisely because appearances lack inherent existence, appearances lack unchanging essence. Therefore, each sentient being, each karmic being experiences appearances based on their own karmic baggage. 2.8. Actually, we should stop here today. 2.8, 2.9. This is about time. 2.10 as well. 8, 9, 10. It's about karma and time. Our actions, and when the results of those actions come, how we experience them. So it's elaborating on the same point, but 8, 9, 10 is about time. So we'll look at that in the new year. January 2nd, in the new year.